Hello, everyone. Welcome to VizConnect, connecting you with the art of data visualization and storytelling. My name is Sagar Kapoor, part of customer success team at Tableau, and we are into the fourth season of VizConnect. So VizConnect is all about connecting you with best practices, how you can go ahead and improve your craft in data visualization and storytelling. We have a YouTube channel. Go ahead, subscribe to it. Some great content is waiting for you. And all the sessions which are presented on VizConnect are uploaded to our YouTube channel. Also, our Tableau conference is coming next month in person from 17th to 19th May in Vegas. And also virtually, you can join in terms of whichever region you are located. And also, the catalog for the event is out. If you have not registered for in person or virtual, I will highly recommend you to go ahead and join these sessions. It will help you out in terms of learning some best practices and how you can go ahead and improve your craft in terms of Tableau, data visualization, and storytelling. With that, let me go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. Her name is Dawn Harrington. Dawn has been in the reporting world since 2019. She has used various ETL and reporting tools. She has a unique perspective that's perfect for Tableau dashboards. With having art, education, and computer science degrees, her passion is to help users with various tips from her blog site, techtipsgirl.com, and I will go ahead and share the link with you. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Dawn to talk about Tableau tips and tricks. Dawn, over to you.
Thank you, Sagar. Hello. Welcome to today's VizConnect session. Um, Let me start sharing my screen. All right, so I just wanted to go over a couple of advanced tips and tricks that you might not be aware of. I did the session for a veterans advocacy group earlier this month. So let me go ahead and go to the next slide. So I have a Tableau public site. If you want to look there, I have several different Vizes out there. If you want to take a look at those, you can kind of see in the background here that I have a couple. I have a blog site, which is techtipsgirl.com. As Sagar mentioned, I post Tableau tech tips, Alteryx tech tips, and Microsoft Office tech tips. And these have been featured in the Data Fam Roundup several times. And so a fun fact about me is that I'm having a Harry Potter themed wedding reception next week. So I love all things Marvel, science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek, you name it. So let's go ahead and get into the tips. So I'm going to go over several, and the format will be I'll go over a couple slides, and then I'll do a live demo with these in Tableau Public. So the first tip I want to go over is to format your tooltip as a sentence. Maybe you may not be aware of this, but the first basic picture here is the Tableau default for your tooltip. And it's better if you format this as a sentence. So instead of month of order date, just to take out the structure and make it as a sentence instead. It's easier to read for your clients and so on. The next tip I want to go over is these pesky keep only and exclude buttons. It is a nice feature to have, but just from my experience, I've had a lot of users get stuck with these. So if you hover over a bar in your chart, you may see that these will pop up. So I've had users say, I'm stuck, I don't know how to unfilter. So I just remove these options. You go to your tooltip and this feature is actually on the bottom. So I just uncheck these two boxes here and it'll remove that option. The next tip I want to go over is removing the title of an axis. Sometimes this isn't really needed. It can create visual noise. And with all of these little details, you have to think, does it help your chart? I usually remove these. I think it's a good practice to remove these. So I'll just right click anywhere on the axis and click edit axis and just delete that title. Go to my next tip. The other thing is I want to just get rid of grid lines. I think these create a lot of visual noise in charts. You can right click anywhere, on your chart and click format. And I typically go to format borders with the left-hand pane, and then click on the borders and then the format lines option just to get rid of those. Because they don't really help anything when you have those gray grid lines in the back of your chart. The next tip I want to go over is, did you know that you can abbreviate months and years? So instead of having just the regular format of like March, 2002, you could go to custom when you're, going to your axis, and you can adjust it to, 3 M's and 2 Y's. So it'll show up as, APR for April and then 2/2 for the year. So, I mean, sometimes this helps to conserve space, if you need to have this, if you want to show, the date on your axis. The next tip I want to go over is to remove sort controls. Some, beginner users may not be aware of this, but anywhere, if you click in your graph and you have, region on the side, if you hover over that first column, you can see that A to Z, the little tiny A to Z column will show up. And in order to remove these, you can just simply go to your worksheet tab and then uncheck the option for show sort controls. Once again, you may want your users to sort it, but I typically remove them just because they may sort it by accident, and then it can cause more questions later. The next step I want to go to is, did you know that you can have custom shapes in your Tableau dashboards? You may not be aware of where this file is. It's usually with your Tableau repository. Can I switch to presentation mode? I can, if that's better. See, but there we are. All right. So, you can go to your C documents file and Tableau repository, and then go to your shapes file. And I typically right click for a folder here and then, create custom. I have a blog on, the custom shapes that you should have. A blank shape is usually one of the ones that you will need. And I can show you a dashboard where I've used a blank shape. But it's typically one that, we recommend. So just go to shapes. Also, icons8.com is a place that I go to get free icons for dashboard. There's also flaticon.com. So that is the shapes tip. And I'll stop here after this couple of calculations and go to a demo. So I get asked all the time, how do you see the current month versus the previous month for dashboards? So in this calculation, I just threw up some, how you get the latest date. You can do this with a fixed LOD expression by getting like the maxed date from the date column, and I have current month, which is, you can see it's a date trunk, but that when I go to a previous month, then there's the date add formula where you want to subtract the current month to look at the previous month. And then I have a couple of more, how to get the current month value and then the previous month value with some formulas here. And then I just always wanted to stress this to new users who that there is an order of operations that you want to think of when you're creating dashboards. You may run into some issues where you're like, trying to filter by the specific filter, I don't know what to do. It could be because you have a filter, on the data source, and that's, filtering before your other, dimension or measure filters and so on. So sometimes you have to think about, okay, what is Tableau doing first? Then what is it doing before it hits my filter? So some users may not be aware. Always go to, you can just Google, Tableau order of operations, and it'll bring up this little image for you. So let me go ahead and hit escape and then go to just Tableau public demo. All right. Are there any questions before I start? Let me see.
There are no questions, Dawn. You can just go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, format, let's go back to the first one. How do you format your tooltip as a sentence? So as you see here, I have a very basic, region, sum of sales using the sample superstore data set. So you can see here I have, region and then sales. So if I go to my tooltip, you can see that this is the way that it automatically sets it up. Anything in these brackets are usually your fields. So region, and this allows when you hover over it to, go to the specific one. So I just simply wipe out this and say the total sales for region, and then I'll just and if you accidentally deleted this, oh, what happens? You can always go to your insert button to insert your fields down here. So now when I click OK, I can see my hover over has now changed. But wait, it's still formatting as a number instead of, the currency. So you can format it up here. You can click format. You can also right click on the sales option down here and click format, but I'm going to click format, and then it'll bring me to my, formatting options window here. So I can go to, currency and then change, and then, oh wait, it has commas. And the 3 zeros, that really creates a lot of visual noise. Is that comma 000 needed? So you can always change your display units to thousands instead of having those extra zeros. And you can see here it automatically added a prefix and a suffix here. And, for those of you that are not in the United States, you could change that to a pound sign if but it should automatically come up with your pound symbol with your region. So we can see there, it's changed it in the tooltip and it's changed it on my axis. So that was one of the basic. Remove the keep only and exclude. So you may not be aware if you're a beginner user. So if I click on this bar, I can see keep only and exclude options here. So if I click that, oh, it just filtered only by central automatically. So I've had users, what do I do? So I'm just going to click the back button just to get rid of that. And then I'm going to go to my tooltip and then just uncheck these options here. So when I click OK, it should now be gone when I click on those bars. So you may not be aware of that option, but that exists in your tooltip. The next one was removing the title on an axis. So if I did one with sales, so I have just a simple line chart here, it automatically puts month of order date. So if I right click edit axis, you can see here that the title is automatically down there, and you can just simply click delete to wipe it out. That's what I do, and it gets rid of that title. And is it really necessary? You just have to ask yourself that. And you just right click on like the side axis, and you could do the same thing. Just get rid of that sales, and it'll delete those titles. Get rid of grid lines. So if I click anywhere here, you can kind of see that it has that gray grid line. So if I click format, but it'll take me to this screen, which is already selected. So if I want to click on borders, you can just go through, if you had grand totals, you could get rid of those. There's also format lines. So I get rid of axis ticks, I get rid of zero lines, I get rid of axis rulers. And then you just have to flip through all of these. Typically, if you still see lines, it's like, oh, it could still be on the rows tab instead of, there you have sheet, rows, and columns. So you see here, it gets rid of those grid lines and it looks a lot clearer. So if you have a line graph, it's going to be in your format lines option here. If it is just a regular kind of table chart, you may have to do format borders with this icon here. So the next one is, did you know that you can abbreviate years and months? So I'm going to click edit axis. Actually, no, not there. Sorry, I apologize. I'm going to click fields and do months of order date. And that will take me down here by using this little fields drop down. And so instead of dates, you can see that there's this custom option all the way at the bottom, and you can click the month format. So you can see automatically it's changing when I do those 4 letters. And then I can do the 2-year. So you can see I have an older version of Sales Superstore. So I have, it starts with November 16th. There's also an abbreviation. Sorry, no, not this way. Depends on how your date is formatted. If it is discrete or continuous, sometimes these date options will change. So just keep that in mind. If you don't see custom, you may have to switch it to continuous instead of discrete in order to, play around with what is showing up down here. All right. Remove sort controls. So I'm going to flip back to my bar chart, and you can see here if I hover, let me expand it. Let me just expand this a little bit. All right, maybe. Oh, it's still showing me this. So I did left align. Okay, well, anyway, you see this small A to Z there. So if you go to your worksheet tab and then just uncheck this option, it should now go away, that little sort controls. Because some people accidentally can click that and then it'll sort, it'll sort, and they're just like, I don't know how to unsort. So I just don't think it's worth having it on there. The next tip is shapes. So if we go to one Windows tip is if you navigate to your folder, there is this option called quick access. So you can always pin current folder to quick access. If you're in a different version of Windows, you may see a yellow star instead of a blue one, and it'll say save to favorites. So then that way you always have the folders that you go to regularly right here in the left-hand pane. So, as you see here, I have a bunch of custom shapes that I've downloaded, but you can always, if I go a folder up to the parent folder and I just click new, you can create a folder here and it will show up in your Tableau dashboard. So I have a bunch of different custom shapes here. And I did mention that Tableau Public, there is a need to have a blank shape. So let me just pull up the dashboard where I'm using a blank shape. In my public profile, I created this Star Trek computer-like dashboard for an Alteryx training program. So we can see here, I have these phasers that's really just a bar chart behind the scenes. So you can see the percent complete. So I have enemies that'll show up only when the level is complete. And you can see there's a little Easter egg that says, it was great hand-to-hand combat and we defeated the Klingon. But this worksheet is actually, it just has blank shapes unless it changes to that 100%. So I have a way to do that behind the scenes. So this is just one use case of having a blank shape. All right. Okay, and then I just have the date formulas. I'm not going to show you a dashboard with that. I have a bunch out there in Tableau Public. If you go to my site, I'm trying to think if I have the date option. I've done a couple in my blog site for the dates. I think you could find them in the world of charts. I have a couple of date options in there and so on. Okay. So let me go back to my presentation. So I recommend using an ETL tool for data cleanup. Some people use Tableau Prep. I use Alteryx. So it helps to take the complex calculations out of Tableau. because you may notice, however, how you have your data formatted can, impact performance of a Tableau dashboard. So what I do is take out the complex calculations, and I also format my data as a tall format, meaning there's more rows than columns, because I've noticed that Tableau performs better with less columns and more rows. It just performs a lot faster. So this is an example of just a sample Alteryx workflow. I recommend that you look up Alteryx in your spare time if you're not familiar with it. But it's a drag and drop tool, and there's 60 plus tools that you can use to wrangle your data. It's pretty fast as well. So you notice that it will save you so much time if you use an ETL tool. The next tip I want to go over is focusing on color. And if you search marketing and color, you can find this little view out there. There's so much analysis that's happened with color. As beginner users, we may use like the default palette. So just keep in mind that certain colors can mean certain things, and there's lots of marketing studies on that out there. So don't use automatic color palette or wild color choices. So, using the default is okay, but you may want to, I recommend using the colorblind palette. A lot of KPIs are red, amber, green. You may have, some clients that are like, we need to have, the RAG ratings or red, amber, green. And then you have to mention to them that a lot of like 20%, I think, of users are colorblind, so they're not going to see your colors between red and green. So don't use the traffic light, don't use red, amber, green, use the colorblind palette. And another one I would like to recommend is the monochromatic, or using like picking blue and then using the various shades of blue. So let me go to the next slide. So too many colors equals the Fruit Loops effect. I didn't even come up with this. A colleague came up with this, and I thought it was pretty amusing, so I just stuck with it. As your eye can only process so many colors at a time. So when you have a chart like this, you can't really differentiate. It's too much visually on your user. So I just put this picture of Fruit Loops because can you really distinguish one over the other? So just remember the Fruit Loops effect. Once again, just don't use too many colors. Some people use heat maps and have multicolor stepped choices. And that's what you have to ask yourself is, can you differentiate these middle colors? Since you can't process that many colors at once, I always like to recommend going down to, like 2 options, because that way you can quickly identify, if you're a manager and you want to quickly identify, which states are your problem states that aren't bringing up a profit, bring down that stepped color to 2 or 3. So I have that in my next slide. As you can see, can you really differentiate those middle colors? Like Louisiana compared to, New York and so on. It's sorry, Louisiana with like Idaho. Like these middle states colors don't really show you much. So when you bring it down to 2 steps, you can quickly identify the ones that aren't bringing back a profit and that you need to look closely on. So they will definitely help you make quicker decisions. So did you know that you can create your own color palette is another one. So this just requires you to know the hex codes of colors. So you just open your preferences.tps file. And once you open it in Notepad, you can see that there's some coding here. And for those of you that may be familiar with XML coding or HTML coding, you need to have your your hex code in between these 2 tags of color and then color with a /. So pick those colors that you want to have, put them in between those 2 tags, and then you just have to have this line that says, where you give it a custom palette name. So you could have like Star Trek colors or something like that with type regular, and then just have your hex code, and then you need to have your closing tag of your / color - palette. So once again, I'm going to go to a demo and do this. So I'll just quickly bring up a map, and we'll put state on detail and just do Yep. Okay, so then let's do state on color. All right. This is a Fruit Loops effect, like I mentioned. Actually, I don't want to have state on color. Let's do sales and put our state back on detail. All right, so here I mentioned, actually not sales, let's do profits. That's how I got the orange and then the blue. So in order to adjust this, you just click on color, edit colors, and then you just take your step color down to, this gives you 5. So I give it 2, and then I'll just change this by picking gray. I'll just move my cursor down and then just lighten. You can always pick a screen color too with the color picker, or if you know a custom hex code, you can do that. Or if you know your RGB colors, you can adjust them there. I just move the slider down and click OK. So now I just have, custom diverging with the 2 different colors. And then once I click OK, it'll tell me, okay, these are the states I need to focus on. So that was that one. The color palette. So if you go to my Tableau repository and just go to your preferences and then just open with Notepad, that's how it will show you how all the codes for all of your different palettes are saved. So you might, you can see your different color options here. So you just simply create it by, just, my cursor's going crazy here. Control home. All right. So all you would have to do is just enter a new line, and you just copy, the code from another one and just rename this. So my Star Trek or something, colors, and I'm just gonna pick some code here. And then let's go to color palette, put my closing tag here, and then file save. Then it should show up in your color palette. If you, sorry, color palette. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. So you should be able to see when you click, it should show up in here. So you see like my custom colors and shape Python. Click OK. There should be a way to refresh. And then you should be able to see like the Star Trek colors. I might have to open it and close it again, but there should be a way to refresh that. So the next one, okay, so I went over those tips, and then so layout, going into layout, layout is pretty important. So if you ever maybe you're familiar with Excel and you've received a spreadsheet like this where it's all over the place, you have nothing but numbers. It's too much for, like I mentioned, it's too much for the eye to see. So you want to make sure that your layout is, I'm sorry. Oh, changing the layout code. Oh, sorry, somebody posted a comment there. Sagar, did you want to add that?
Harren, I think we can take this at the end in the Q&A part.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay. All right. So so these are going to be all layout tips. You may not be aware of it, but Tableau automatically adds phone layouts to a dashboard, and when you have the dashboard view, just right click and click delete on like the phone, and then it should automatically get rid of that phone view. And you can also go to dashboard and then scroll down and then just uncheck add phone layouts to new dashboards, if any of these are checked. So that's just if you want to disable that option. The next tip is, so my first degree is art education. So I found that thinking of, learning the rule of thirds in photography is pretty helpful with creating Tableau dashboards, because if you think of it in that grid line, and think of it, if you can just Google rule of thirds as well, you'll come up with this image here. It helps you with balancing, visually organizing your dashboard. So just like this first picture of this rock is okay, but then if you balance it on this way, it's a little bit better, because you're balancing what it's called negative and positive space. So anything that takes up the image is your positive space, and anything that doesn't is considered negative. So what the prime real estate is always going to be that upper left-hand corner. And a lot of users may waste space by putting a map up here in the left-hand corner. And you really want to put in like your important values, such as KPIs and so on, at the top of your dashboard. Some people put it at the top of their dashboard, because the eye will go up there and then it'll continue down to the rest of your dashboard. And I bring this up because Tableau has a very interesting video out there for eye tracking that they did analysis over this. So once again, they said that upper left-hand corner is that sweet spot. And here is just an image of, where the eyes went first. And you can watch that on YouTube, but you can see here where the eyes started up here in the left and then went over the rest of the dashboard. So some helpful resources out there. Let me stop and escape. I don't really have anything to share for that demo, actually. So just helpful resources. Andy Kriebel created this awesome visual vocabulary out there. If you're ever wondering what kind of visuals should you have for certain kinds of analysis, go to his visual vocabulary. One of the Fleurlage twins, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, he also has one out there that's updated. So I use this. I tell all beginner users, to go to this, because, you can see the different charts to use for ranking. You can see the different charts for deviation. So I put that link in my slide here. I try to recreate it and put my own little spin, because I noticed some charts that I've used, and then some charts I don't recommend using that he had in his, such as, a pie chart. All of us can kind of cringe when a client wants to have a pie chart or a donut chart, because you can't tell the difference between the slices. So what if you had a metric that was 23%, and then you had a metric that was 25%? Could you visually tell the difference, which is smaller when you're looking at a pie chart? You can't in most cases. So we recommend bar charts instead. So like I mentioned, I recreated the world of charts just to kind of, go through and show what I'm capable of doing. And, I'd recommend that you do the same, because there's lots of different graphs out there. Another helpful site that I've recommended is Laws of UX. Someone on LinkedIn actually recommended this, and they said that there's a bunch of different laws that you may not be aware of that make so much sense once you're going through lawsofux.com. One is the Hickman Law, the Hick-Hyman Law, which basically states, the more options that you give a user, the longer it takes for them to make a decision. So if you're designing your dashboard for users, you want them to be able to make decisions quickly, be able to look at your visuals and come to conclusions. You don't want to pile a lot on a page because you're giving them too many options and too many things to look at. So just keep that in mind. Decision versus time versus number of options. The next one that I found to be helpful is the Doherty threshold. And I like to joke and tell a lot of people for documentation, can you keep it under 400 milliseconds? Because productivity soars when the users interact at a pace that's 400, less than 400 milliseconds. So that way you have to ensure that you don't have to wait, because if you structure your data correctly and you don't have you don't have the Tableau spinning forever, your Tableau dashboard spinning forever, it's just a poor client experience if they have to wait on the metrics because, your dashboard isn't structured properly, your data isn't set up, properly. So I thought this was a pretty interesting, those two laws called out to me. The next thing I wanted to mention is just use Tableau Public for inspiration. I pin a lot of stuff in Tableau Public as my favorites. I have more pinned than I actually do have dashboards. If you're ever wondering how to first start, you have a client that's given you, a problem, a requirement, and and you're just like, how can I make this interesting? So you can look at Tableau Public for inspiration. I also recommend for beginner users to create their own dashboards. So that way you can show how you're progressing. I have some beginner dashboards out there in my Tableau Public site, and a lot of people use Tableau Public for resumes. I think those are pretty interesting because that way you're showing prospective employers and others what you're capable of doing. So you could say that you know Tableau, but it's also helpful to visually show them that you know how to do certain things in Tableau with your Tableau Public profile. And then the next tip is make the Makeover Monday challenge. I've done a couple where, there's some interesting data sets with the Makeover challenge, and Andy Kriebel is no longer maintaining the site, but a lot of users I've noticed still go out there and do certain challenges. And it's just interesting to see, the creativity of different users of where they've taken this challenge of, like what animal could you beat in a fight is one of the ones that I did. And okay, and where they go with it. So here's my example of what animal could you beat in a fight, and I painstakingly added like little capes and little masks in Snagit. Snagit is another application that I use. I'm just setting it up, but and then I did one where how are the wildlife populations changing, because I thought this was a National Geographic. I thought this was, something National Geographic would do. So that's all I had for my presentation. I'd like to open up for questions.
Hey, Dawn, thank you, first of all, for sharing all the tips and tricks and all the resources. And if you have any questions for Dawn, please go ahead and feel free to put in the Q&A tab or the comments. Happy to go ahead and ask her. So Dawn, I have one question for you, and it's more in terms of how did you start with Tableau, and what was your biggest inspiration just to go ahead and work on your data visualization and storytelling skills?
I started with, I was actually given Cognos first in the firm. So I had a lot of Cognos and other various reporting tools. And I saw Tableau when a coworker was given that license because it started out being pretty expensive and then it wasn't. And I was begging, can I please have access to Tableau? So I started with just wanting it. And with my experience with other reporting tools, once I got started, they gave me the access, and I started just doing basic, analysis for different users. I attended a Tableau user group session that was at a local Iron Hill brewery that I just watched what they could do with it. And I was like, this tool is amazing. I want to learn more and more. And then I applied to our internal Tableau Academy. And that's how it really, I want to say it really accelerated my skills with Tableau. And then someone else had and just attending all the Tableau user group sessions, and just from recommendations of people saying use Public and just get started from there. That's how I got into it.
Great to know that. Thank you, Dawn. So Greg is asking, where should we place drop-down filters on dashboards? Tableau defaults to the right side, but I prefer top. What are your thoughts on that?
I like to put them in a container. So a little filter container, because I find that to be a little bit easier if they're hidden. Because I mean, if you think about it, the filters can take up real estate. I've seen some people put it on the left-hand panel. I was going to try to think if I have one where I have the filters. Because you can also put like an information guide there. So a collapsible container in the upper right hand is where I put it. And I usually have like a little mouse icon or something like that when I have my filters for a dashboard. So I'm just trying to come up with an example to see where I have dynamic filters. Yes, okay, this one. I can share my screen again. So I have this little filter icon here. And you just click on it, and that's where I put my drop down filters. Just because when you see those filtered values, you know, it can take up a lot of real estate. So, and the filter icon, just you could do a filter icon, or you could do a little mouse icon just to let them know, hey, this is where you can filter your dashboard. So, any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Yeah, we have one more question, and I think this is more related to your preferences.tps file. So
Okay.
Vishrat is asking, one quick question is, does preference.tps file should be available on Tableau server when you publish your dashboard or the workbook holds that color palette?
Right. So those icons, if you don't package it, if you don't save it as a packaged Tableau dashboard, you have to upload the icons to the server. So you are correct.
Okay.
These uploaded the icons because they are packaged with the Tableau data. It's not that TWB file, it's a TWBX file. So
Okay. And also the custom color palette, like the .tps file, that is also has to be packaged, right? So it has to be a .twbx file, and Tableau should take care of it. Is it like that?
that one I'd have to research. I don't know the
Okay.
answer of that one off the top of my head, but yes, I'd have to research that one.
Any other question for Dawn? Anything you want to ask? Okay. So I think this last question from you, Dawn. Uh, any tips you want to give to someone who is just starting with Tableau and how they can just go ahead and start their, uh, I think, start engaging with the Tableau community? Anything you want to go ahead and talk about?
So I've actually did a blog on, you know, like how to get started with Tableau. The community, so there is a Tableau user group community in LinkedIn. You'll notice that a lot of different people submit items there. So I did do a blog post on how do I get started with Tableau Designer, where I just grouped together a bunch of help and YouTube videos. There's an article in Tableau help.tableau.com that shows you how to get started. If you are a brand new user, there's a couple of modules there. I put a couple of YouTube videos out there that I recommend. Drill down actions and sets is very important to know. So you can see there's a beginner users and there's a lot of random and helpful techniques. Kevin Fleurlage, follow him if you can on Twitter, on LinkedIn. They have their own site, the Fleurlage Twins. So favorite those. Favorite Andy Kriebel's visual vocabulary, like yeah, like I mentioned, the Fleurlage Twins. You know, VizArt Pandy is another one that I follow. Zach Geis, my manager, has datatheories.com. So just get involved with joining your local Tableau user group, and you can learn so much just by going to a session. If it's virtual or in person, you know, it's favorable because then that way you get a chance to network like I did. But yeah, LinkedIn, you know, join those groups, follow those users, and they post very interesting articles, and then you'll just accumulate that knowledge the more that you get involved. So you'll get out of it what you put into it. So, you know, if that makes sense. So, um, any other questions?
No, I think that's it, Dawn. Thanks a lot for coming and presenting on VizConnect. It was an honor to have you. Thank you for sharing all your tips and tricks, and I'm sure we'll all be able to go ahead and improve our craft in Tableau and data visualization and storytelling.
Well, thank you.
Perfect. With that, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining the session. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.